At some point, we're going to have to stop talking about the Chopin competition, but that's not going to be right now because I'm joined by Eugene Chan, pianist, cartoonist, and data analyst extraordinaire. Now, there's lots of stories to tell about the Chopin competition, and the most important ones are about the pianists who moved you, who made you feel something. We're not going to do that in this video because this video is going to tell a different story, but nevertheless, a very revealing one about what was unusual and exceptional in this year's competition. Eugene, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
And I should say, Eugene is quite well known for his cartoon strip, Don't Shoot the Pianist. He has a recent new installment. Eugene, just quickly before we start looking through the numbers from this year's competition, can you tell us who has the earliest applause at the end of the Chopin E minor concerto in the Warsaw competition?
Probably ever. I would say it's a tie between Christian Zimmerman and Rafael Blechach, at least as far as we have video for it. For this year, I would say it seems to be Zitong Wang, who came in third. Like a lot of people, I was eagerly anticipating the results of the 19th Chopin competition for hours and more hours than I thought I would be. Then the results came out, and I thought, oh, this result seems to be one that makes the most people the least satisfied. And that sentiment's been expressed a lot online. Now that, a week later, the data comes out, and I thought, wow, there was actually a good reason for why I felt that way. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is something I've called colorful scorecards. I have a sheet of all the scores that were given out during this competition. They are color-coded. The higher ones are green, the lower ones below 15 are red. And there's a number that captures how wide the variance is between the numbers on the scorecard. And it's called standard deviation. So we have to talk about that a little bit. Standard deviation is basically a numerical score that indicates how much a set of data points varies. Standard deviation and average are both up this year, which means that more jury members like more people, but different people. And that's going to become really, really key as we're going through this. So if you look at this graph I have here of standard deviation versus average in stage one, normally you expect that people who are closer to the top have lower standard deviations. Let's say that you have an average of 25. Well, there can't be any deviation to it because you can't score above 25. Right? So everybody would have had to give you 25 for you to get an average of 25. And now there's no deviation. But if we look at this graph over here, we see some of these scorecards are just absolutely crazy. Pedro Lopez Salas's scorecard has 12 different numbers on it. He has an 8, a 9, a 22. He has almost every number between 8 and 22. He is missing a 10, an 11, and a 21.
If I had been on the jury, I would have given him a 23 or maybe higher. So.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the highest number of distinct scores on any scorecard since the Chopin competition moved to the system where they give marks out of 25. And they did that in 2015. His isn't the only one. There are 8 other performances in stage one that have at least 10 different numbers. It kind of tells you that a lot of different jury members had vastly differing opinions. Xiao Yufu is one of those competitors who got a perfect score from someone. We will talk about that a little more later. That perfect score is right next to a 13, right? Which is kind of incredible. Vincent Ong made the finals. He has an 11. He also has a really high average, and he, of course, ends up making the final. Both he and Fyodor Pavlak end up mostly having large deviations because of one outlier score. So speaking of outlier scores, Next, I'd like to talk about disproportionate effects. And when I say disproportionate effects, I really mean one juror is able to have a very large effect that you wouldn't expect one person out of 17 to be able to have on one person's scores. Of course, we can't really discuss outlier scores without mentioning David Krakuli. He is probably the most talked about finalist at the Chopin competition. He has just missed the prizes. He has the lowest single mark in round 2, and he has the lowest single mark in round 3. And partially as a result of that, he has the highest standard deviation in both of those rounds. If you look at the number of 24s and 25s he gets, he's also 5th in stage 2, he's 3rd in stage 3. I'm not the first person to notice this immediately. I think the entirety of David Krakuli's fan club pointed this out immediately. Oh, he got a 12 from Eva Pobochka. Okay. Got a 14 from Eva Pobochka in round 3. Turns out that was enough to make the difference. Because let me give you a hypothetical, just a thought experiment. Let's say that Pobochka was not able to vote for David Krakuli. And usually that happens when you're someone's student. But let's say that you just discount that score from the average. Well, what happens here? The first thing that happens, and I'm just going to ignore that 12. Just one score. We can keep all of the other Krakuli scores from Pobochka in round stage 1, 3, and the final. David Krakuli already moves up about 0.03 of a point ahead of William Yang. And of course, William Yang came in 8th position, but finished winning the 6th prize. Okay, and now we're going to drop the 14 that Krakuli got from Pobochka as well. Now David moves in front of Pyotr and Vincent by about like 100th of a point. Honestly, probably with those kinds of margins, he just ties with them. Okay, so of course, we can't just say, oh, Krakuli's lowest scores don't count. Or at least if you're going to do that, you kind of have to do that for everybody else as well, right? But you might also think, hey, didn't they have this adjustment procedure that was supposed to make sure that all of your scores that were like extreme outliers didn't get counted? Well, sort of. One of the weaknesses of the system is that when you adjust the scores, and in mathematics we call this clamping. Clamping is adjustment of any value into the nearest available value out of a range. Now, the score that gets clamped here, it's clamped to some range, and the range surrounds an average. That average included the outlier score in the first place. This is the problem. So let's say that Eva Pobochka's score didn't count. Everybody would have gotten clamped to 19.56. This is in stage 2, where she gave a 12. So Krakuli's raw average was 21. Everybody got clamped to the range between 19 and 23. Let's say that Pobochka didn't vote. Now David's raw average is 21.5, 21.56. Everybody now gets clamped to the range between 19.56 and 23.56. And the result of this is that because of the low score and the fact that clamping happens, and clamping happens at an average that is half a point lower than it would have been otherwise, it means that there's an extra half point being deducted from every other juror's score who got clamped. And in Krakuli's case, he got clamped 9 times. So this system is supposed to make it so that outliers don't affect the score that much. I would say, especially in a competition that is as close as this one, it did make quite a difference, right? And one of the reasons why this kind of, shall we call it sabotage, is possible even in the first place, is that this is a very contentious jury, right? This is easily the most contentious jury since 2010 because we have all the numbers. I don't know anything about the numbers for 2005, but given that Rafael Blejas won all the special prizes, I think we can probably assume that it was not particularly contentious, right? So there is this thing called a correlation coefficient. And a correlation coefficient says between two sets of data points, how much are they trending in the same direction? And the correlation coefficient is a number between -1 and +1. The closer it is to +1, the more the two data sets agree. And the closer it is to -1, the more the data sets disagree. In the context of scores about opinions, we can just take that to mean, oh, how much did the people who are expressing those opinions agree with each other? Usually between 0 and 0.4 is about a weak correlation. Between 0.4 and 0.6 is a moderate correlation. And then 0.6 and onwards up to 1 is considered a strong correlation. If you have a correlation of 1, it literally means that you have the same data set, basically. They are, you're expressing the exact same opinion twice. If we look at the correlation between an individual juror and the jury that person sat on and take it through all the stages since 2010, it has only happened 5 times that the correlation between a jury member and the jury that they sat on was less than 0.4, a weak correlation, until this year, when it happened 20 times, which is kind of crazy. And we can go even further with this. We can say, hey, how were individual jury members correlated with each other? You look at the next one here, the correlation between individual jury members in 2015. Look at how well pretty much everybody is getting along. And then you look at 2025, stage 3, for example, the more Garrick Olson likes a candidate, the less Michel Baroff likes that person, and vice versa. Like, you never expect this to happen. Garrick Olson and Dong Tai's son, I saw your video with Garrick describing himself as the onion in the petunia patch. I mean, that's the onion right there. There's a whole row of red right at the top. Oh, what took so long? I'm like, oh yeah, actually, that's not surprising at all. You look at these numbers, you hear the stories, and it goes, oh yeah, actually, why did it only take 5.5 hours? I'm surprised they all showed up together, right?
Who did like each other? I see some high positive numbers. So John Rink and Sa Chen seem to agree quite a bit in the third round, it looks like.
Yep.
So they got along famously in their jury scores, at least. In fact, that is probably the most noticeable one. We also have Robert McDonald and Vilches Vitawa getting along quite well here at point 0.7 in the third round. Is there a jury member who, in general, was most agreeable with the rest or with the whole? Is there a way to sort of tell that? It might have been
Yeah, I mean,
Suitawa. Suitawa, actually,
I think
maybe.
you're absolutely right. It was Vitava. In stage 1, he correlated with the rest of the jury at 0.75, so that's pretty strong.
Mhm.
In round 2, John Rink and Svitala were probably two of the most well correlated with the rest of the jury. Round 3, Svitala's correlation with the rest of the jury is 0.85. Like, Svitala is the microcosm of the entire jury's decision-making process here.
If it had just been him on the jury, we would have gotten more or
Yep,
less the same
more or
results as
less the
all
same
7
results.
times. And yet he's still at a negative correlation with Garrick in round 3.
Yep.
So we got to get these people in a room, man. I'm telling you, some kind of
Yeah.
reality. We need a reality series, that's just the jury room, of a piano competition, and we gotta, we isolate each of them, and we have them, it's sort of like one of these dating shows where you get them separated and they start talking about each other, but then you sort of film them together, and then you film them in pairs, whispering things behind each other's back. This is real drama, I think.
Absolutely. And if you want drama, One thing that we can actually talk about here is the number of really, really high scores that we get. Right? And by high scores, I'm just going to say 24 and 25. Now, I will preface this by saying that there were, in fact, just more high scores that were given this year. As I said, the average was up. If you want to talk about perfect scores, 25s. Performances that one jury member thought was literally perfect, couldn't be improved upon. In 2015, there were a grand total of 25 perfect scores given out. In 2021, that number goes up to 29. This year, 45 perfect scores given to 32 different performances by 21 people. A quarter of the people who entered the 19th Chopin competition got a perfect score in one of the performances from somebody. And sometimes that somebody was disappointed because in years past, like if you got a really high score, a 24 or a 25, in 2015, there were 43 such performances and 40 of them advanced. That's a 93% pass rate. Like you were almost certainly advancing. In 2021, there were 49 such performances and there were 41 passes. So the rate goes down to about 84% or so. They didn't actually use average as the first criteria back in 2015 and 2021. They used the yes percentage as the first cut.
But they still had the numbers.
They still had the numbers. It was supposed to be used as an indicator if people were tied, which rarely happened because typically if people were tied on yes percentage, they would just admit the rest of them.
They would both go on anyway.
Yeah. It was typically used as a tiebreaker. There are a few times where someone was tied on yes percentage and then they were eliminated based on points. So it did matter.
So points probably were just for our amusement in the past. They almost
A
never
little bit, yes.
Yeah.
A little bit, and also there was a rule that if you gave someone yes, you had to give them at least a certain score. You couldn't give them yes and go 12.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to hear this person again, but I really don't like them.
Yeah, just like, it's like sometimes we hate watch certain movies, they're just so bad you got to see them,
Exactly.
Not allowed to do that as a judge, but in any case,
in 2025, first of all, way more top marks. There's 79 performances,
almost double,
that get at least one top mark. Yeah. So part of this is because they're number one, more top marks being given out. And the second part is they're being given out to more different people, right? Because these are performances that got a top mark. So Sungjin Cho's performance from 2015, where he gets 3 25s, 7 24s, and 7 23s, counts once. With those kinds of high scores, you get into the situation where a good number of competitors got eliminated after they received a high score. So 56 out of the 79 people who got a high score this year, so either a 24 or a 25, passed. That means that 23 of them didn't. And some of them got multiple high scores. So 23 times it happened that some juror or jurors, plural, said, okay, this performance is either perfect or as close to perfect without being perfect. And then they went into the jury room when the results came back and went, oh, that person's not on the list? Jack Gao got eliminated after a stage in which he got not 1, 2 perfect scores. There's only been one time in the last 2 competitions where a competitor got eliminated after receiving 1 perfect score. It's never happened that someone got eliminated after getting 2 perfect scores on that round scorecard. Honestly, if you ask me, it shouldn't be allowed. Like, they should make a rule two people say that you got a perfect score, you should just automatically get to the next
Yeah,
round,
it's a,
right?
yeah, you somehow get some kind of invincibility sort of, and you can just pass through no
Exactly.
matter what. I mean, there is this question of like, okay, there are polarizing pianists in the competition. Some of the great pianists of all time are polarizing. Literally, people hate Glenn Gould and would give him a zero, in the Chopin competition or whatever. And he's maybe one of the greatest geniuses of the 20th century, in any artistic field.
Absolutely. And what does all this mean? Well, to put it succinctly, there are two ways to win the Chopin competition. One is you are Sung Cho and you just get everybody's top marks all the time. His third round's scorecard looks like 23, 24, 25, 25, 24, 24, 23, 24. Like there's like two marks that aren't 23, 24, or 25. That's not happening this year. So the other way that you win a piano competition is you score as few low marks as possible and you pick up as many buddy's second place ballots as possible. And that's exactly what Eric Liu did. Like if you look at all of the finalists, every single one of them actually got someone's top mark sometime in the competition. That's very unusual. Everybody had a booster somewhere. And so that's kind of what I think when it comes to, oh, the results were something that made everybody very equally unhappy, I almost want to say. Like David boosters were unhappy, Tianyao boosters were unhappy, uh, you know, Vincent boosters were unhappy. Everybody was kind of unhappy. And Eric fans, of course, didn't discover Eric at this competition. Most of them have been following him
Right.
for the last 10 years, right?
I think it's interesting if we just look at the people who got the highest score, the most number of times from individual jury. William Yang is fourth place. He had nine.
Yep.
9 different times the jury said this is the best thing I heard this round, and also, I mean, credit to
Yeah,
Vincent, who's in fifth place overall, and yet he's getting almost as many top scores as Eric. Liu, I mean, that just shows that Vincent was one of those really polarizing ones because the only way you get that many highest scores is if you're also getting really low scores from a few others.
absolutely. I read another analysis that if you only count everybody's top five marks, Vincent wins a much higher prize. I think he comes in third.
And that's actually a decision for juries and competition administrations to make. They get to decide
Yep.
what determines a winner. They could have the same exact system and say, you know what? After all these are calculated, here's how we're gonna rank 1 through 6. We're gonna look at what the favorites were. And then these other numbers can be tiebreakers. The averages can be tiebreakers, and things like that, because they might feel like it matters more that they made more people fall in love with them. And there's be a good argument for that.
My completely harebrained idea is that we should add some portion of the standard deviation. In other words, the range for real score and count it, like add it to the average or something along those lines. Because who do you want to hear? Let me give you two hypothetical candidates. You don't know anything about them, but I'm just going to give you two scorecards. One person, there are five judges. One person has a 12, a 15, an 18, a 21, and a 24. Candidate B has 18s across the board. They have the same average. Who do you want to hear?
The first one.
Yeah, right? Like maybe you will listen to that person and go, oh, I really don't like this person. But you can't tell me that you don't want to at least find out what the heck is going on there.
There's so much more coverage of the 2025 Chopin competition that you can find on my Patreon. I'm also putting a lot of bonus discussion from this call I just had with Eugene because he only saw part of it and we just couldn't help ourselves. We had to just keep talking and talking. Could we sort of say maybe like just the standard was even higher this year?
What are standards?
Here we go.